ever, what's the one, on location. It's the first ever VR location podcast. We're going to start in with a 3 and a 2. Hey everyone, and welcome to Comedians on Technology, People and Drugs. I'm your host, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have comedian Renee Mallette, or also known as Windmajik in virtual reality, on the podcast. Hey Windmajik, it's really great to have you with us. Thanks so much for sharing your time.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure, and is a particular pleasure to be here for, like, now we had an on location version of the podcast in the Tokyo Comedy Bar in Japan this summer. So that was the first one on location. This is the first one on location in virtual reality. We are, of course, in the world famous Scenic Club. Proprietor Stephen S. The man, the myth, the legend. We're in front of a live audience of a few people. Yes, everybody go, way, live audience, way, come on, yay, fantastic. So this is really exciting. And so Windmajik, you're a very, very funny person. And I know the question that's going to be on the lips of all of our listeners is, what is your comedy origin story? And usually what I do here is I kind of like riff on some superhero and their origin story. And I've kind of gone through all the main ones, and I'm struggling to find other characters. I must, were you given a hammer by your father that sort of like encapsulated the lightning comedy, and you've been ever seeking to get that hammer back in your grasp? Or how did it all start, this comedy business?
So I had an odd childhood. There wasn't a lot of laughter in my house growing up.
Oh no.
And I grew up on the autism spectrum, and I also have ADHD, but I didn't know it. I was undiagnosed until my late 40s. So I didn't understand a lot of how the world worked, and didn't have a lot of exposure to comedy. Very young. And I remember watching like the class clowns, and they amazed me. It amazed me how they could just get everybody to laugh, and they just went about it so naturally. And they did things that were seemingly weird to everybody else, but it was funny and they were accepted. And I loved it, but I was always too afraid to express myself that way. I had a speech impediment. I stuttered. So yeah. But then I discovered drugs.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people that are on the spectrum that are older did, and or had some form of developmental delay or a mental illness or something. They self-medicated with drugs because they went so many years undiagnosed. And the 70s and 80s was, very, very, a lot of people running around misdiagnosed or undiagnosed.
Sure, absolutely.
So I learned that I could drink a lot of alcohol, and I didn't have the inhibitions, and I could just be myself. I didn't worry about what other people thought of me. And I didn't care that the weird things I would blurt out, that people were laughing at me, because I never knew if they were laughing with me or at me. Because a lot of the times the things I said, I didn't know why people were laughing.
Right, sure. Yeah,
so,
go on.
Yeah, and then my brother, one of my older brothers, had made a bootleg tape of Eddie Murphy's Delirious.
Oh yeah.
And I listened to it, and I just thought it was amazing. It was like all these doors opened up, and there's like, whoa, people talk like this. They're the class clowns, and they actually make a career of it. It sounded like the most wonderful and amazing thing for anybody to do. And that was pretty much my inspiration for loving and learning to love stand-up comedy, was Eddie Murphy.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. No, he's fantastic. So many interesting things there. If I may, you were saying you grew up, without much laughter. Whereabouts in the world were you growing up?
I grew up in Vermont, in a very, very rural town on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Um, but my parents were, my father was an alcoholic. He was not a very nice man. And my mom was the sweetest woman in the world. I mean, if you could picture Edith Bunker, I don't know if you know who Edith Bunker was. It was an old American show back in the 70s, I think, called All in the Family. And it was just this woman who, she wasn't real bright, but she had a heart of gold. And she married my dad. And my mother grew up in a very affluent family, and my dad did not. And then the two got together. So it was kind of an odd mix of of worlds coming together and their ideas. Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of real laughter. Yeah, there just wasn't a real lot of laughter.
So sort of a bit of a rather serious or tense or sort of difficult situations in the household. Not a bit challenging. Yes, right. Yeah, it's I mean, I think often there's a sort of stereotype of comedians having difficult backgrounds. And then you were sort of saying about we'll come back to maybe some elements. I was just particularly thinking about what you were saying about kind of being in awe of the class clowns at school.
Absolutely.
Which I was also. I never seemed to be quite as quick-witted on that side of the things, and sort of when I was growing up, I was almost bullied by the class clowns. I seemed to be like at the very bottom of the pecking order, and just I couldn't really work out. And then as I get older and a bit bigger, I mean, I was still quite shy, but then it was also, for me, I think drinking alcohol, I think particularly on a ski trip when I was 17, that I suddenly started coming out of my shell and saying things, and other people that were then kind of like occasionally laughing at the things that I said, and I couldn't work out, and I was like, why are you all laughing? And they were like, well, because of that thing you said. And I said, I didn't really understand what was going on. So it sounds like there's a bit of overlap there. But you mentioned, watching Eddie Murphy Delirious. I mean, we didn't get the Eddie Murphy stand-up in the UK so much as we got, the movies, such as Trading Places and Beverly Hills Cop and so on, which is where I know Eddie Murphy from when I was growing up then. But so you saw him like doing comedy, it was amazing and so on. And what was this? Forgive me, like this was at your university or at school or your first job? Whereabouts in your life were you when you were seeing Eddie Murphy?
Young.
Yeah,
I was young. I was probably early high school.
Okay. Yes, it's still in high school. Go on.
Yeah, and I just, the way he told his stand-up was not the style that I had seen. I had seen I had seen like people just telling jokes, one-liners, telling quick jokes.
Right.
And to me, they never seemed real funny. I didn't get it because my autistic brain could not in any way relate to it. If there's something that I cannot relate to in any way, I can't relate. I can't imagine myself in a situation. So the way he was able to take his stories, stories from his childhood. There was one he told about his mother putting together a burger. He wanted a McDonald's cheeseburger, and his mother put together a mama burger, and it was just, a big, huge burger with onions and peppers sticking out of it on two soggy pieces of white bread, and it was not, what he wanted, but the way he told the story, I could relate to that. I didn't have a lot of things other kids had growing up because there were very limited funds coming into our household. So I was able to relate to that. And because of it, it stuck out in my head because he made it funny. And it made me realize that even though there were bad things happening, all I had to do was look at it a little bit differently, like just change the perspective I was looking at it from. And my world, my personal world at that time didn't feel so bad. And I always wanted to be able to make people laugh, but I was a very, very serious child. I didn't think that I ever had that ability. And it was years later that I learned I had the ability to make people laugh.
Right. And so putting it in the sort of timeline there. So this is in high school, you're kind of, you've seen other people doing sort of, just joke one-liners forms of comedy. And then Eddie Murphy was the first time that, okay, there's a kind of storytelling, there's a kind of relatable comedy that's like, not only very, very funny, but also useful for me in my life. And then, what was the first time that you then actually considered getting on stage and trying to make other people laugh?
The first time I did it, some girlfriends of mine I was already long out of college. I was, in business. I had a career. I was a very serious person. I did not, at that point in my life, I didn't do any drugs. I only drank alcohol very rarely and only socially. And for one reason or another, my girlfriends got me out at a karaoke bar. I have zero musical talent. I can't carry a tune in a bucket. My voice sounds terrible. It sounds like you're pulling a cat's tail. It's awful. So when my turn came up, I found the longest song I could. And rather than get up there and sing with the music playing behind me, I got up and I just started talking about something that had struck me during the day that I thought was hilarious. And I was just drunk enough that and everybody was just laughing and laughing. And that sound and realizing that I was the person that inspired these people after a long day and a long week to laugh. Like, because when you're laughing, you forget your problems just for that minute.
Right.
And the feeling that I was able to inspire people to laugh with my goofiness, it was like crack. I mean, it was like the best drug in the world. I was on a high. I stood up there for a good 10 minutes, just talking all kinds of weirdness, and everybody was laughing, and it was wonderful. So that was my first experience. I was probably, it was nothing prepared. It was basically an observation about penis size and IQ.
That's good. The classic. Yes, like me, huge penis, huge IQ. I know it's like I inspire a lot of stand up. It's the Red Panda knows. No, but that's an amazing story. I think that in all of we've spoken to, I think over 30 comedians now, and there's the first time that the first set has been like a guerrilla karaoke. You kind of went in there and you subverted the medium, right? The karaoke, and you did stand up. Wow, that's fantastic. And so then you had that. I guess we often talk to people about their first time and about how intimidating it is because it's on a stage in a kind of comedy forum, and it's like, but that sounds like almost did you kind of, there wasn't really any nerves because you just, I don't want to sing, let me do something different. You just sort of slipped into it in the moment. Is that right?
Yeah. It was less scary for me to try to make people laugh or just talk about goofy stuff than it was to get up there and sing. Singing is not something I do.
No, I'm no singer. I'd love to be able to sing, but it is singing well is, I struggle to carry a tune. But so you had that occasion, and as you've so eloquently described, there was that amazing feeling of, wow, I'm saying these things, these people are laughing, this is brilliant, we're forgetting our troubles. Were you then like booking karaoke slots for the rest of the next week, or how did things progress from that point?
After that, I would just, around my friends when I was drinking, I would somehow always end up the center of the party, the life of the party, because I'd be telling stories and making people laugh. But I never really considered doing stand-up. And then I kind of got away from it for years. I didn't do anything like that. Again, I'm not a big drinker and stuff. And for some reason in my head, I thought that I would only be able to do something like that. It wasn't until I came into VR that I considered doing stand-up.
Oh, okay. Right. So I guess what I'm hearing there is so an initial during high school kind of idea that stand-up could be a thing, and that could be a career, that could be something, which I think, contemporaneously I was sort of thinking, wow, yes, but only very special, super talented people can do it. And I'm proving that somebody not very talented can do it pretty much every night of the week. But what was I saying? Yeah. So there was that there. And then in a sort of, career phase, it was something you did as a bit of a, thing to, just amongst friends to kind of like, but it was fun. And then, so that's like, I guess that's quite a long, I mean, it's quite a long time. But then ultimately, I mean, VR, I'm late to the game. When did you first come into VR, virtual reality?
I first came into VR. I used to have, oh my gosh, 2020. It was during the pandemic, like a lot of people. I had a show in alt space, but it was not a comedy show. It was no, it was a wrap up of weekly events. It was like an opinion kind of based show.
Okay,
my views, things, but it again not comedy based. A lot of it was like more like a rant. Then around 2022 or 22 maybe or 23. Alt space ended, and I found myself at loose ends, and I came into Horizon Worlds one night, and I discovered a comedy club, and it was 420, which I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but in the States, 420 is kind of a stoner holiday.
It's the hash day, yeah.
Yeah, I smoke a lot of marijuana now. So I was here on 420, and I found a comedy club, a group of comics, and I said something, and one of them said, "Oh, we should get you up on stage." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe sometime." And they said, "There's a stage," so I got up, told a story, and I was with them for quite a while, but they've moved to another app, and now I'm here at Scenic Club.
Yes. Well, and then it sounds like, I mean, I'm trying to think back, and well, I think I mentioned this, that the Unknown Theatre, who basically both, and now this is the thing, I haven't put up my names. We had the founders of
Simon, Josh, and Rodney Ramsey.
Yeah, have both been on the podcast and talked about their whole approach, and so on. And I think it was of course through the you and I both first met. And I think
we met at Europe. They used to have a show.
That's right. I used to have a show. Even before that, I was. I think it's like 2022. Could even have been 2022. I did like one or two just appearances before I was. Maybe was it 2024 that I was regularly doing that show. Yeah. Wow. And then so has the comedy you've been is it been exclusively in virtual reality, or have you also done some physical appearances as well?
Done physical now. I did my first open mic in New York City at a club called the Pioneer Bar. I was there visiting with a friend, and Doobie Wan, a comic, he comes in here, has a show in here, I think first or second Tuesday of the month. He brought me there, and we both did an open mic performance, and I also host my own open mic here in Vermont.
Oh, fantastic. Yes. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to getting over to the States and sometimes at some point and joining all these things. And of course,
if you're ever welcome to come to my open mic night.
That would be great. Yes. And well, you're very welcome to come to mine in London. Actually, I've got a couple now, but yes.
Careful, fantastic. I might just show up.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Yeah, good stuff. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And so the, for having gone from that sort of the karaoke thing, which was sort of a bit spontaneous, was the first time doing the comedy, stand-up comedy in VR, or indeed in the open mic in New York. Were they, were you fearful of it? Was it just a natural progression? I mean, how did you feel on the occasion of doing those things? Was it a big deal?
It didn't make me nervous. I know a lot of people get very, very nervous before they go on stage. I've always been comfortable since I found my voice and don't stutter like I used to anymore. I've been comfortable on stage. More comfortable on a stage in front of people than in a group surrounded by people, for sure. Right. Because I'm more in control. Maybe I'm a control freak. I'm more in control of the situation.
I think that there are many comedians. There was there's a Welsh comedian in the I think it's called Rod Gilbert, did a TV show on sort of social anxiety, and how, I mean, he's a very successful comedian and, you know, plays to huge audiences, but he and some other comedian friends of his will struggle to go into a coffee shop, even just to order a cup of coffee, because it involves talking to the barista. So I think it's a not uncommon experience. I mean, distracted. Lara Croft is in the audience. I'm a huge fan of your work. Yeah, so that's
one-on-one is difficult too. I mean, like, not really talking like this, but yes, absolutely. Like, well, recently, I mean, I would have no problem like being on a stage in front of 2 people or 2,000 people. It wouldn't bother me. But recently I had an experience where the place that I go into for my morning coffee, a guy who I say hello to regularly, we say hello, good morning.
Yeah.
He asked me out. And I'm like, well, can't go into that coffee shop anymore. Thanks a lot.
Okay, right.
You know, like awkward. Yeah.
That's now awkward, and you'll feel uncomfortable and so on. Yes, these you know, one-on-one situations can be. Yeah, I mean, I suffer from crippling social overconfidence. That I just sort of, you know, it's a different cross to bear. It's yeah. Well, and that seems like, certainly for doing stand-up comedy, if the fear thing is not there, then that's wonderful. I mean, I'm very confident in a lot of social situations, but when, like, for example, there are these gong shows that they have in the UK, and where you're like, the audience can kind of vote you off the stage, and I think my nervousness in those situations proves to be, you know, quite it's very difficult for me to be funny when I'm that nervous. And these days, when I'm on stage in my club or regular places that I go to or here, I don't really experience any nerves, but I'm still trying to overcome in those more sort of like high tension situations. It's I was just thinking, I mean, we'll come back to drugs many times, of course. You were saying in your initial narrative, you were sort of saying, that you had, before you were diagnosed with autism and ADHD, that you were self-medicating. But then you were also saying, during your kind of that first period when you did the karaoke and so on, that was a period when you weren't drinking very much alcohol. And I was just trying to work out in that sequence, I guess the sort of the self-medication that came sort of later on, comparable, about the same time you started doing VR, or where did that fit into the sequence?
Well, I, not knowing that I have ADHD, I didn't. So a lot of things with stimulants, caffeine, cocaine. I mean, I take Adderall now, but they work differently on people with ADHD. They actually calm them. They close some of the tabs that are constantly open, and will calm the racing thoughts. They don't stimulate the way they do for a neurotypical person. It works different in the way the brain reacts to stimulants. So I used to drink a lot of coffee. And in the 80s and 90s, while I was building my career and such, I didn't really drink because I didn't like the way it made me feel out of control, but I did do quite a bit of cocaine.
Okay.
And yes, and it was affecting me. It was affecting my health, my sinuses. You know, not a good way to control ADHD, for sure. And that was able, you know, the part of it was, though, that I feel like the autism helps keep me semi, you know, organized. It helped me to build my career, but I cannot, if I take my medication, like today, I knew that I needed to be creative. I needed to think and have a personality. So I did not take my ADHD medicine because it dampers my ADHD. And I feel like that's where my personality comes from.
Right.
Because I get very robotic and very methodical. Otherwise.
Yeah.
And it was great for building a career, but not so much for comedy.
Interesting, fascinating. I mean, I'm almost tempted to reverse the order of the questions, partly because there's so many different fascinating things in here. But that does now make sense. I think I'm putting together the sequence in my mind of, you know, like, all right, high school, Eddie Murphy realizing comedy, and then, you know, but building a career and sort of self-medicating with caffeine and coke in order to, like, sort of manage the ADHD, and then later on realizing, okay, no, different direction, and, you know, different drugs and VR and so on, and then doing comedy in both VR and the real world. It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, caffeine and Coke, both drugs people accuse me of being on. I don't do either. It's just, I've got a meth lab in my mind. It's, it's the, get high on your own supply, as they say. But I guess, in respect to the genre, other people, I don't know if anybody here has actually listened. Obviously, Lara Croft is a big fan of the podcast, so I'm sure you'll know the question that's coming up next. But what we often ask about is how technology affects your life and comedy. And obviously, we mentioned virtual reality, and we'll definitely come back to the drugs, because of course the podcast is all about comedians on technology, people, and drugs. And but so technology has clearly had a big effect on your comedy in terms of, like, that was the first, through virtual reality you did stand up, and but yeah, this question is often sort of a thinly veiled attempt for me to also understand people's process. I'm really interested in how you come up with your comedic ideas, and how you live your life. So, to the extent that technology is affecting it, I'd love to hear about any use of technology in any part of your life or comedy. But I'm also just very interested in hearing about how you make things work at the moment.
Well, it does. As far as technology, I mean, obviously, like we said, the VR. But the social networking helps. It helps to get, word out there. It helps exposure. Technology has helped me in that. Well, I've met a lot of people that I've met in VR, in the comedy world in VR. Now I've met in person.
Right.
I've met both Simon and Rodney, my co-host, Belligerent, from a previous show that I had. I've met him. Wink, as so many people, Doobie Wan from VR, and it's afforded opportunities in a comedy aspect. While I'm writing, my ideas come from life. As my reality is happening, there's also this alternate reality kind of picture movie playing in my head of what it could be. And there's a soundtrack. The characters look, wonderful and stuff. So I take that there are many things that will happen that other people don't really see humor in, and I do. So because of this little movie that's always playing in my head, it just keeps life interesting. So I will come up with something. I'll turn it into a joke of sorts. Or a premise for a joke, and I always run it through AI to make sure that it's not a premise that's been used before, or if it has that I'm not copying it. I would never want to do that because I smoke a lot of weed, and I'll listen to like different shows and stuff, things on YouTube.
Sure.
One night I was listening. I had a couple of drinks, which that does it for me. And I was with a friend of mine, and we were watching old stand-up. Rodney Dangerfield was in. Was on. Next morning, I'm in the shower, and my mind's going, and I think I'm hitting comedy gold. Right. The following Monday at this joke class that I attend sometimes, I repeat one of them. I'm informed that it was in fact Rodney Dangerfield who came up with that. I was mortified. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a hack. No. Worst thing for a comic is to get up on stage and say somebody else's joke. It's like, no. So, after that, I am so careful, and AI is really good for that. I don't use AI to write my jokes, but I do use them to check my jokes.
Fascinating. It's really interesting because it's the first, lots of people have talked about, using AI, for example, to find rhyming things or like an extended thesaurus. It's the first time I think we've heard on the podcast about using it to check whether something is out there already. And I guess, with knowing what I know about AI, I guess one might be worried about the danger of it getting it wrong. But you find that generally, I mean, of course, the AI has got much better in terms of hallucination and so on. You find that generally it's pretty good. Like you put something in, and it will tell you, oh yes, so and so, this joke was done So interesting, fascinating. Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of trying to put together my own joke database so that you can kind of like, sort not just for my own jokes, but for other people's jokes and like, for the jokes of other people that I like and have that listed and organized. But it's fascinating. And you were saying about sort of like seeing life happening and then having kind of like this own version sort of going on in your head. And then as you're seeing that and you're having those ideas, is that getting written down in a notebook? You're taking voice notes, your notes in your phone. How do you make sure you remember the good ideas?
Many times I take out my phone if, and I'll take, I'll write notes in a pad, or I'll take voice notes. I bring my phone into the shower with me because I have a lot of thoughts in the shower because there's nothing else to distract me. So I'll bring my phone and do voice notes.
I will do the same. I always put obviously it's dangerous using the phone in the shower. But I tend to put, like, we've got a little cupboard that's next to the shower, and I always put the phone in the little cupboard next to the shower, and then I'm having a shower, and then if I have a thought, I'm like, right, turn the shower off quickly, write it down. Yes, absolutely, brilliant. And then so once you've had those, do you then, and you've had that's the sort of seed of the idea, do you then like make a certain amount of time each day to spend polishing those ideas, or do you just take them on stage? What's the process after that?
I don't like to practice too much. If I practice too much, it very much sounds practiced and rehearsed. I will, what I do is I'll look at it, I'll think, oh yeah, that was funny. So I'll keep that in my mental notebook for doing a set. Like what I do before I get up on stage is, first, how long do I have? And I know approximately how long it's going to take me to spin each thing. And I just look at the ideas. I don't have everything written out word for word. I just have, one or two words just to jog my memory. And then I just roll with it from there because it's more natural.
Right. No, brilliant. Keep it loose. And then do you find you record your sets and then you watch them back afterwards to try and analyze, or you trying to prefer not to do that? Yes.
I do. I watch, well, like this one, I have my bot in here recording this, and I'll go back and I'll study it, and I'll study the way I spoke, the way I use words. I know I have an odd like speech pattern sometimes, and I do try to smooth it out. One thing I do that I learned that not to stutter is everything I say as I'm speaking, and I didn't know that this wasn't a normal thing to do until only a few years ago, is I'm reading everything I say. And so when I'm reading, I don't stutter. When I get excited and I can't find my words and I'm too happy or too excited or get very emotional, I will stutter and stammer over my words.
Okay. And so so you're saying in order to avoid stuttering, you kind of read things off a pad that you...
No, in my mind, I read every word.
Oh, in your mind.
I see the words. I see the words as I'm speaking them.
Okay, so it's almost like a bit like the Star Wars intro thing, where the words are kind of scrolling like this, and you're seeing
Except
that
it's like,
it might go this way, and it's kind of going like and what an enormous IQ he had. It was almost as big as his cock, and so that's still written. I thought at least some people, at least Rip Panda laughed very briefly there. Lara Croft is muted. I'm sure she was laughing inside. I thought that was quite a good riff. But it was a call back there. See, he was talking because we talked about big cocks. Anyway, fantastic. Well, and I'm also reminded because we had Laura Kelly on the podcast recently, and she's a South African comic, and she had struggled with stuttering as a young person, and that for her, she'd done a lot of theatre, and it was a lot of like having things very, very precisely written out. I think in reality, that was how she managed the stuttering. Yes, interesting. Right. So you're seeing the words, and then you're reviewing them afterwards. And yeah, fantastic. This is, and I guess that sort of covers the technology really. You mentioned there's the social media. that comes up a lot recently about, is it there's this sort of received wisdom at the moment that says, right, you must take all of your content and just sort of get it up there. I sort of think there's maybe we're just training the ultimate Terminator stand-up. That one day, like all of this, comedy material has gone up, and eventually they were going to have the like, Arnie, D1500, you will laugh at my joke, and obviously not an accent, but
to answer your earlier question though, like the transition, like from VR to physical world and back and forth, I truly don't notice. I don't know, other than being able to reach out and touch people and stuff.
Yeah,
I
which is
truly don't
illegal in most states, but
like right. Do people do frown on that? And I mean, I have been, known to grab an avatar or two, but I don't do that in real life.
I'm glad you said avatar there. I was going to,
Although I did bite somebody one time in the store.
Oh goodness
Very
me!
impulsively, yeah. They reached their arm in front of me. I didn't even think. It didn't hit my brain first. I reacted and I reached over and I bit their arm. And then I'm kind of looking up at them with their arm still in my mouth, and I'm like a dog. Yeah.
Okay,
it was awkward.
I was going to say some people pay good money for that, so it's like but that was obviously spontaneously in a store. You should have charged them. I've got to do it. This is interesting for me doing the previously when we did the remote podcast at the what's it called, Tokyo Comedy Bar, we just sort of did it in the room that had the stage, and this is the first time I'm doing a podcast where I'm on the stage where I also sometimes perform. So that is sort of slightly affecting my brain.
But look at this! Look at this great set that Stephen made us.
Yeah, Stephen has put together a wonderful interview set here with fantastic chairs and even and drinks Stephen. And everything. It's absolutely brilliant. Really excited about it. But yeah, I think it's maybe time to move on to the next question, which is about the people that have had the biggest impact on your life and comedy. What was I going to say? Yeah, and often this becomes, there's not so many because naturally those people come out from the comedy origin story. We've mentioned Eddie Murphy already. We mentioned your parents, your friends who got you to do karaoke or wanted you to do karaoke, and what did they start? But yeah, I mean, are there other people that you'd like to call out that have been big influence, whether they're people directly in your life or people, other in the stellar comedy array of other comedic influences? Who are the biggest folks?
The biggest influences are Simon, Josh, and Rodney Ramsey definitely. Right. Yeah, they. I mean, they encouraged me. Rodney is, he's a professional comic and an actor, and he gave me so much good advice at the start, and I didn't have. While I don't get nervous, I also don't always have a lot of self-confidence. It's always amazing to me when people laugh at stuff I say because I don't always expect it. And it makes me so happy. But, he helped me to have the confidence and really encouraged me a lot. Really encouraged a lot.
It's wonderful. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, lots of people.
So I would say, immediately those two for sure.
Brilliant. Yeah, and that's great. And and there's no pressure. What was it? We had Sam Baranowski was the folk that we had in the on location episodes. I Love You Too, Laura. The on location episode in the Tokyo Comedy Bar, and he was sort of saying, "Oh, how many people do we usually mention?" And absolutely no pressure. But anybody else you want to mention as influences, or we'll move on to drugs?
Well, of course, you, Sam.
Well, I didn't say that.
Is that what you were? I don't know. I mean, the whole autism, not really knowing social media, reaching for that, or
no. I think I was more thinking it was that certainly not at all. I mean, basically, I have so much self-love going on inside. I don't need any additional adoration from everybody else. But no, I was thinking more. Was there anybody else in your kind of friends and family, or possibly other very famous comedians who had influenced your style in either of those two areas? So you mentioned sort of Rodney and Simon, who are sort of VR famous in terms of their things. Yeah, I wondered if there was anybody else in either of those two, kind of like Social Network or what's the word, Galaxy of Stars, that were big influences on you.
I don't really watch still a lot of stand-up. Because for the same reason that I've heard from several comics that you don't want to accidentally steal somebody else's material. You don't want to, and when you take your comedy from real life, you're not sitting down writing jokes, which is something I would not be able to just invent a joke, just pull it out of midair, out of so if you're watching a lot of comedy, watching comedy becomes part of your life and it becomes meshed, and you'll start thinking that way. And I really just rather go with my own style, whatever that is.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, well, no, that was it. Yeah, I certainly agree.
I don't want to compare myself to others because I would feel lacking, and
no.
that.
Yes, that's certainly a danger. Yeah, I mean, but I partly mentioned because you mentioned one time watching Rodney Dangerfield, and so I wondered if there were other, like before you started doing stand-up, were there stand-ups who you particularly enjoyed, like Eddie Murphy, for example?
George Carlin. I think he's brilliant, and I mean, I think he's one of the most brilliant comics that ever graced the stage. I mean, the rapid fire way that he could, just deliver his sets and stuff were just amazing to me. And the facts, the statistics, I really admired. The way he delivered his messages.
Right.
And
fantastic. Yeah, no, he's one of the greats.
But again, like, while I admire that style of comedy, I could never do. I could never ever do.
Well, you never know, but yeah, everybody has their own different voice, and I think I mean, this is like the modern stand-up comedy art form. It's about finding your truth and exposing your truth, and then like finding the funniness in that. And I think we all aspire to doing that. I mean, I kind of, yes, I'm not attracted to go and see big stand-up comedy shows. Partly for all right, I'm going to copy people, or there's that risk. I mean, when I was younger, before I was doing stand-up comedy, I used to watch Dylan Moran and went to see him a few times, and he's a very funny Irish comic in the UK. And I would find myself, in the pub afterwards, sort of copying his style a little bit, because he just had very, sort of like his style of talking was just so attractive to me. But I mean, these days for myself personally, I mean, I do, though, like, often to help myself go to sleep, I go to sleep listening to actually either my recording of me having done the comedy booby trap here, that night, or just, like, for example, I was just listening to Mark Maron's, one of his new albums, and just all these different things. Yes, Shuriken. Yes, points for all of us. And people say there's that risk. Oh, if you're listening to this comedy as you fall asleep, you might end up recapitulating it. But I sort of see it as, it's a big dumpster, and like there's the whole of my life, and then there's like all the different comedic styles. And I was listening to Hannibal Buress last night, and I just try and, like, almost every night be sort of like drifting off to a different style. And then, my also, as you know from my comedy booby trap, is it's like I'm continually doing new things all the time. And I'm hoping that in some ways by doing that I'm not allowing myself to stick into one thing that ends up being, I've lifted it off. But yeah, I'm absolutely going to be using your tip, which is like, if you've got good new stuff, ask AI, has this been done before? Of course, then this thing, are we giving them our secrets? When we really do have hit the jackpot, it's like, yeah, like the AI is going to go, yes, that's never been done before, and it's brilliant, and I'm going to go off and have a comedy career off the back of it. It could happen.
Do you find when you're watching other comics, do you find yourself rewriting the jokes in your head? Like, oh, I would have done it this way, or that would have been funnier if they had done it this way, like restructuring their jokes, because I do that all the time.
It definitely happens
from the funny.
Yeah. I think when I'm doing this kind of like falling asleep to comedy, there's a little bit less of that, because I'm usually so tired at the end of the day. But because the other context in which I see a lot of comics is I run these comedy nights, and I have, on a given comedy night, there's another 10 comedians, at the open mic or slightly higher level, semi-pro, what have you. And I'm hearing their material. And it's in those contexts where my brain is, particularly now I've been doing, like, for 6-9 months or whatever, this 10 jokes a day. And I'm like constantly rewriting and coming up with new little, like, expectations subverted. So much so, actually, like I was talking about on stage last night, that in this comedy show that I was in last week, I accidentally said out loud the punchline of this guy, thinking that I had come up with it in the moment, and actually I hadn't. It was actually his thing because I'd seen him do it before. So it's like one's got to be. It was that was embarrassing. Anyway, yeah, you guys, I'll talk about that more on stage at some point. Very embarrassing, but this is the thing: any embarrassing and difficult situation suddenly becomes useful as a comedy gold. Well, not as a comedy gold, but sort of comedy. So it's.
I have taken basically. I mean, anything that I didn't work through in therapy, I worked out on stage. Some of the more embarrassing moments of my life. But I've also learned as I've gotten older. I mean, I'm 54, and a lot of comics are, they're younger, that are just starting on their comedic journey, are much younger than me.
Right.
And, when you're 54, and I've had a lot of life experiences that people experience much older in life, much later.
Right.
I experienced very young. So, I have a lot of miles behind me. But not. I mean, it's 54 is mature, but it's not ancient. So I think that I have less fucks to give than a lot of people do.
Right.
I mean, about the way I'm going to come across to other people. Sure. There was a time that I would worry that the things that I say on stage were going, oh my goodness, what if so-and-so sees this? What if so-and-so sees that? I work at a church. Now, they have all Googled me. They have found my material online on my YouTube channel. And some of these older ladies, and I warned them all. I said, my material can be kind of filthy. I don't know if you really want to, say that. Sure. And, they've come back to me and been like, oh my goodness, it's so risque. Okay. I never thought about talking about my pussy as risque, but okay, that's a nice way of putting it. But, I don't care anymore. And I mean, the pastor said to me one time, well, I should, like to see you, see one of your shows, one of your sets sometimes. And I just looked at him, I said, look, dude, you're a pastor. My stuff is filthy. So knowing that, if you want to go and look at it, that's on your soul, not mine. Because I just, I'm me now. I'm just me. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable with who I am. And I figure if people don't like it, there's plenty of other stuff to listen to and look at in the world.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Amen. And well, interesting. I think we are actually about the same age. And you had mentioned to me separately, different sorts of the extraordinary life experiences you'd been through. And I had thought, oh wow, this soul is really, really far ahead of me. And I think actually you are, but not in physical years terms, which is I've got some catching up to do on the soul side. But that's it's interesting that you mentioned the YouTube channel. I mean, I guess I've started now putting videos of myself on TikTok and Instagram. In my mind, YouTube is kind of a bit more public, although I don't know why I have that kind of idea. But so going back to the technology thing, so you've got your YouTube channel and you I've got a lot of stuff on YouTube, but it's all unlisted and it's just stuff that I send out in order to book gigs. But you've got public stuff on YouTube, kind of curated as kind of, this is the kind of stuff I do. Brilliant. Yeah, we'll have to get the YouTube channel in the show links.
Windmajik.
Yeah.
Just Windmajik.
Fantastic. Yeah, we might spell that for people, but we'll get the spelling in the show notes. Yeah, I'm just I'm really excited there about all of the different aspects of that. Yeah, it's interesting the word filthy. I like to think that sort of stuff talking about nothing's filthy really. Filthy is if you kind of drop your sandwich in some mud, having a huge cock or being excited about your pussy or other felines in the area. That's just all good, natural, healthy fun. And I wish it didn't get.
There's one joke I tell about giving a blowjob and then feeling something hitting my teeth and crunching, and realizing that the guy had kidney stones.
Oh. See, I think that's a great joke and not filthy in any way. It's a perfectly natural, wholesome thing that we can tell Grandma. Yeah, because she's given blowjobs too, hasn't she?
Thought the screams were because he was enjoying himself.
Brilliant, absolutely wonderful. Yes, yes. Well, I'm tempted to come on to our fourth question, which is about how drugs affect your perception of reality. And as I often say at this point, I mean, the word drugs people tend to think of illicit or illegal substances, but I'm using the word in the broader term, so including alcohol and caffeine and ADHD medication and just any kind of substances. And clearly these days, many people use some substances or others to adjust how they experience reality. You've already alluded to that. Other people are saying, "Well, I'm not on this. I'm not." Yeah, let's. I mean, I guess we've got the basis that you were saying. Back in the 70s, 80s, it was sort of caffeine and coke. What? Tell us more about what's going on now. What substances are involved in how you perceive the world?
I don't do any hard drugs anymore. I mean, I've tried a lot of them throughout the course of my life. I smoke marijuana. That's pretty much what I do now.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I do take Adderall for my ADHD.
Right.
Because I do work as a financial secretary, so it's it's necessary for me to be able to focus.
Right. Right.
On numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what an interesting. Oh, go on.
But I do, like with marijuana. I initially started, I only used it occasionally, and then I became very sick, and I started using it to deal with a lot of the side effects that I was coping with, and now I'm healthy as I will ever be, but there's a lot of residual pain, so I do use some of it for pain control. But I
Okay.
do find that THC, I mean, the state I live in, it's legal.
Right.
I could use narcotic pain medication. I do not like the way narcotics make me feel. I don't like them. They make my brain feel like mush, and they make me feel like I'm like walking through mud. I don't like that overall feeling. Marijuana doesn't do that to me, and I
Okay.
can control the way it's going to affect my mind. If I'm indica is going to make me all chill and mellow and stuff if I've had a hard week. A sativa is going to kind of make me more like uplift me, make me more creative. It's going to feed my creative mind. A good hybrid is going to kind of have like both effect. It mellows you, but it doesn't make you one with the sofa, and it opens up the creative part of your mind because it makes you giggle. And when you're laughing, then your brain is stimulated because you're releasing dopamine and serotonin. So you're getting more ideas, and it's, your neurons are sparking like crazy. And it's, so I use it also for creative purposes a lot.
Right.
For my writing, because when you're talking with people, I come in here in the Scenic Club. I mean, Red Panda and I were talking about kids and the funny, just are things that we still find funny, that we've found funny our entire lives.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you just you start with something like that, and then it just gets funnier and funnier and funnier because you're high, and it's just everything becomes funny and wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah. Well, and interesting. You mentioned there. So in Vermont, marijuana being legal. I think I'm not actually completely sure, but I think in the UK, there was maybe moves to decriminalize it, but I think it's still, kind of an illegal substance here. But it's something you were using it initially in a sort of a medical context, to help with pain relief, which is, I think, I'm not sure. I think in the UK, maybe it can be used in a medical. I'm not sure. I'm a bit confused because I listen to so many American comedians talking about medical marijuana and this and the other. But then, actually in the UK, it's I think it's a different state of affairs here. But you mentioned there also the sort of like narcotic pain relief, and that's become very big in the. I mean, I used to live in the US, and I had like a hernia operation, and I got like I think oxycodone or these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Hydrocodone. I don't remember the names of the stuff, and I found them to be like, wow, they were amazingly effective pain relief. And I quite enjoyed them. I mean, I think they are causing all sorts of difficult challenges, of substance abuse within the US.
Yes, they are.
I did not find myself addicted to them in the way that I absolutely had been with tobacco or alcohol, just me personally. But yeah, having left the States and then, not have them, those things are just not available in the UK. You get sort of like the pain relief here just tends to be this paracetamol or like, maybe codeine, which doesn't, for me, doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. But right. And so, yeah, so you're saying you're using and you say the THC, are you, just out of interest, how are you consuming? Are you actually smoking that and inhaling it, or suddenly I'm on? What's happened there? Wow, I'm so high. I've jumped up on this table over here. That's what happened. Well,
and now you're stuck
and now I'm off the stage. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Steve will probably sort that out for me. I guess I was mentioning, the magic words. No, well, not so. They'll. Yep, Stephen sorted it out. Brilliant. And I'll just put the barrier back on there. Hopefully, that's all going to be okay. Here we go. Yes. Well, I was suddenly very, very high above Lara Croft there. Rock and roll. But yeah. So yeah. Are you? You mentioned THC. Is I mean, is it available in a vape form or something? I mean, I'm just totally behind the times. What's going on with
I use it. I consume it. Pretty much every way it could be consumed except for boofing.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't even know what that means. But
boofing is where you put something up your butt to.
Is it? This is we're learning. Boofing. Okay, this will be a new word that I can use on stage soon. Right, fantastic. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, so go on.
So I use it in like flour or like tobacco form loose, where you grind it up, and I use it in vape form, a capsule form, gummies, in cooking. Right. I use it all different ways in drinks.
Okay, yeah. Right, you mix it up. You have different things. I was going to say, of course there are edibles, all sorts of different ways. Wow, yeah, and I mean, I'm just feeling so behind the times. I mean, I back in university, did smoke that stuff, and I found ultimately for me, and of course this is back in the day when nobody really knew what they were getting. I found it made me very paranoid ultimately, and I just ended up, and so I myself, I don't touch that kind of stuff anymore. But I'm always really interested in hearing about how people are using it, and of course, there you are in a context in Vermont where it's available, and it's. Well, I mean, I guess I will say to as we always do this part of the show, all these substances, can be very dangerous. So do be careful out there, as we've been talking about. Absolutely. For Windmajik and myself, they affect different people in different ways, and so just because one person is having a good experience on them doesn't mean that you will. And I think you need to be very careful with the the laws in your region of the world, and how that can affect. But it sounds like
absolutely. I mean, even when I was using it when I was sick, it was before it was recreationally legal here, but I had a medical card for it. I had a medical card. My employer was aware that I was using it, that I was using it medically. Pain relief, So because I mean, there are, it's not, there are people can get very paranoid. I've seen people, that are not used to consuming it, take high doses and have horrible panic attacks to the point where they've had, they've felt the need to go to the hospital because they thought they were dying, but they weren't. They just had, too much marijuana in them.
An adverse reaction, which is always a possibility. So be careful out there, folks.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm just interested then in, because I mean I don't really follow the news anymore. But so when did it become recreationally legal in Vermont?
2021.
Okay, right. And then how is it now? I mean, all sorts of crazy things going on in the US. Is it now? I mean, within Vermont, is it? I guess it can't, in that such a short time, have achieved the same status as alcohol. But I guess is it sort of perceived in a positive light across the state? Would you say? What's the social kind of dialogue about use of marijuana in Vermont? Would you say
it seems to be, for the most part, very accepted. It's an accepted norm. I was surprised, and I shouldn't have been, that,
Mm.
people who, I wouldn't have thought would be using it,
Yes.
people in their 70s and 80s
Right.
who
Right.
are, saying, "Oh, have you tried this dispensary?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, really?" Or they're
Mm.
asking me, "Well, what do you think would be the best kind for me for this?"
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, I don't think that there are the problems with alcohol, with like drunk driving. I mean,
Right.
I do know that people drive when they're smoking marijuana.
Mm.
Um, I I know that people tend to drive very, very slow.
Hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not the people that are, like, driving 100 miles an hour,
Right.
going crazy. They're the people who are, or they're, waiting at the green light for it to
Right. Right.
turn green.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, indeed.
maybe
Indeed.
driving without their headlights on through the city,
Yes.
stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
think we can probably say that, operating
Also
machinery will,
dangerous.
yes, when intoxicated, probably be extremely careful of that. Vehicles can be very dangerous machines, but yes, rather interesting to hear about how that's perceived in Vermont. I mean, I don't really know what's going on in the UK in that regard. Look, refer to your local MP perhaps on that. And you mentioned also that you take Adderall for the ADHD. And I mean,
Yes.
before we get on to our last question, I'm really kind of interested in so well, you've described so the autism and the ADHD, and so the ADHD, I guess that's in my mind. I says it was sort of flightiness, that you're kind of jumping from one topic to the next, and I guess so.
Um,
You were saying how maybe it's difficult to focus on doing the accounts for the church if you're in your natural kind of ADHD state. Is that what you were saying?
yes. Yes.
Yeah. But then
Um,
the Adderall, then basically if you take that and that, I guess it's a sort of a stimulant, allows you to be a bit more focused and get that job done, so to speak.
yes, it makes me super focused.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yes, anything I need to get done when I'm on Adderall, I can get done. It's
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was very strange because the first time I took it, I hadn't used cocaine in years and years.
Right.
And
Right.
the first time I had been prescribed a couple of other ADHD medications, and
Mm,
I didn't like the way they made me feel sluggish and stuff.
mm.
And then I was prescribed Adderall, and I felt exactly the same way I did as when I was using cocaine.
Right. Goodness me. Yeah. It's interesting.
That
Yeah. Go on.
level of focus, because, like, if you see people when they do cocaine, I've watched people, like, they're all over the place. They're
Right.
like on top of the world. They're going from this subject to that subject. I can
Mm,
get done what I need to do, lay down, and go to sleep.
interesting.
It
Obviously, substances affect people so differently, don't they? Goodness me. Goodness me.
very, very.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of I mean, people sometimes ask me if I'm on the spectrum or if I have ADHD. Sometimes my stage performances maybe give that people that impression. I'm very suspicious of substances and how they affect me. And I'm busy spending a lot of time, like I'm eliminating substances from my life, trying to work out what's the real me. Maybe eventually someone will have an intervention and say, Sam, you need to start using. We'll see how that goes. But let's bring ourselves, less about me and more about you. Let's bring ourselves on to our last question, which is, what does it all mean, this life, the universe and everything? What gives you meaning? What do you think it all means? What's going on? Are we in a simulation? I mean, clearly we are in a simulation because we're here in the virtual reality simulation. But there's like
We are.
how many layers of simulation are there? I mean, what does it all mean, Windmajik? How do we understand it all?
Um, the meaning of life, 42.
How many
Uh,
how many roads must a man walk down? Indeed,
the
Bob Dylan
meaning
and
of
himself.
life. Well, what does it all mean at the end of the day? Um, I think for everybody, it's something different. I think for everybody it's something different, but I think at the end of the day, it's being able to go to sleep and saying, I did the best that I could today with, I did the best that I could. And I think that's what it's all about, is just it's doing the best that you can with the tools that you have, that you're given. And everybody's best is different than everybody else's. And learning to realize that that's okay,
That's brilliant. Yeah. No,
that
that's a lovely
we
sentiment.
live in a world of differences, and everybody's different. Everybody has different views. And understanding that what somebody does or says or how they react, it really does have more to do than with them than it does with you.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know. I think it's just being your true self and letting everybody else be their own true self, and just not hurting people and just being a decent person.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And well, fantastic. No more need be said. But I'm just interested. I mean, you mentioned the church. Was there a religious upbringing or religious influence that's kind of impacted how you've arrived at that point, or is just
No.
or not so much? There was just this is the sort of the conclusion you've drawn from life.
I was raised Catholic. I left the Catholic Church as soon as I was allowed to by my parents. It never rang true with me. I'm not a religious person. I am an atheist. Even though I work for a church, the church I work for is very open-minded and very accepting.
And I guess they pay real dollars rather than spiritual dollars. So I mean, that's
they do pay some real dollars, yes, which does is a bit of an incentive for me to get up and go there every day. But truly, I love it. I love it. The people I work with are amazing. I have never in my life worked in any position that has given me more satisfaction and made me feel better about myself when I left the door, because I'm not working to make rich people richer. I'm working for a place that is nonprofit, and anything that they take in over and above their operating expenses goes to outreach programs. So it makes me feel really good to work for a place like that.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
So
that's great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective in life changed a lot after. I mean, I lost my husband young. I was under 40 when I became widowed, and I fought cancer for almost 10 years. And yeah, and it gave me a different perspective, changed my whole outlook on life.
Sure.
And then learning that I'm neurodivergent, and going through 4.5 years of therapy after that to become comfortable with who I am and process some things and learn how they had affected choices I had made throughout my life. That was pretty much what was involved in my perspective on life now.
And reaching this beautiful place that you're in now. Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
I like making people laugh. I don't take. I mean, I know how to be serious. When there's things that are serious, I can be serious, but I don't take every part of life so serious. Because at the end of the day, or 5 years from now, most things won't matter.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, what an extraordinary story. Yeah. I'm interested. Just to touch on one thing there, you mentioned being atheist rather than agnostic. Is, I guess, part of those experiences, you kind of feel quite certain that there isn't any higher power, any other kind of like underlying mystery behind what's going on.
Oh, I believe there's a lot of mysteries still in the universe, in the world, in life. I believe there's tons of mysteries, but I don't believe that there is a supernatural or like sentient being pulling our strings and stuff. I believe that eventually like a lot of mysteries have been, the science will be revealed to explain those mysteries.
Right.
That's what I believe.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a roller coaster ride, and I've absolutely loved it. Windmajik, I'm sure that the listeners will be desperate to hear more about. You mentioned your YouTube channel, Windmajik. We'll put that link in the show notes. But upcoming shows, other places that people can check out your material. Where can they see you and get to laugh along with you?
Well, they can get to see me and maybe learn a little bit more about me at my introductory to my new show starting in 15 minutes, Conversations with Windmajik, which will be at every other week here at the Scenic Club in Horizon Worlds. And
fantastic.
It's only going to be me tonight because my guest bailed. But I mean, hey, unless you want to hang out, Sam.
Well, the kids might have to go to bed, but
I won't do that to you. I'm joking.
another week, perhaps. But this is fantastic. But this is going to be a bi-weekly show, and it's going to be a bit of interview and a bit of chat, and basically a regular thing here on Sunday afternoons.
Regular
in the
thing
Club.
Here. Thursday nights, there is an open mic night here at the Scenic Club. And I usually come up and do a set. We try to bring comics up, people who like to sing. If you want to do spoken word, whatever you want to do, get up here and just talk. That's fun. I enjoy doing that. And I can also be found Monday nights, 9:00 Eastern time, sometimes in Unknown Theater in VR chat, and every alternating Wednesday at 9:00. There's an open mic there. I can be found there also.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Yes. And so, for people not so familiar with the VR, I think certainly Horizon Worlds, which we're in now, can be accessed with a headset, but can also be accessed on the mobile phone. And we're going to put links to the Scenic Club in that there. I don't know, VR chat, can that also be accessed on the mobile phone? I guess we'll put.
I think so. I put on my headset and I very awkwardly go into VR chat. I am not good with it. I'm lucky I can make it to my destination.
I think I've been in there a few times recently. I think I prefer Horizon Worlds, but we'll put links to the different things in for people who want to try out this VR stuff, because I think many of our listeners will not necessarily have tried out VR before. Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. And remember, you can help support comedians on technology, people, and drugs by going to patreon.com/comedianson, where any level of support will help us to continue to produce this show. I don't think anybody's given us any support yet, so you could be the first. I know there's a cost of living crisis. People don't have much money. Why would you support this random podcast? What you can do if you want to support is follow our Facebook group and comment or ask questions there, or on Spotify. And we look forward to being in your ears again real soon. Last word to our fantastic guest. That's Renee Mallette, or Windmajik, as she's known in virtual reality.
Last word. Sparkles, happiness, sunshine. No. Remember to laugh every day.
Beep, beep, I'm a Jeep. That's what it should be.
Beep, beep, I'm a Jeep. Mana, mana, do, 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 do. Now, don't take life too seriously.
Brilliant. That's a wrap. Yay. Fantastic. Thanks, Windmajik. Wonderful. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everybody, Red Panda, for moderating. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, wonderful audience, for checking it out with us. This podcast will be out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, within a couple of days. And you're exciting Windmajik's further, more of Windmajik coming up in about 10 minutes now. Fantastic.
Woo-hoo. Yes. I'm going to take my headset off for a few and shut the bot off this recording and start the next one. I'll be back in a few.
I will.
Thanks, Windmajik. I'll see you soon. Take care. Yeah. And everybody, I'll be back in on Mondays tomorrow night for my regularly scheduled comedy booby trap, which is me being on stage, not taking any ADHD medication, in case you hadn't noticed. Right. There we go.
That was fun.
Yeah, good stuff. Brilliant. I'll be in touch. Have a wonderful
great. That was great. Really good.
Backstage and then come out. It's brilliant.
Thanks, Steve.
Great, mate.
Oh, who's that? Yeah. Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, Stone
really
Tiger.
And what do you do?
You're welcome.
Are you a comedian, are you?
Yes. So if you go to Instagram.com/Tansaku, You can check me out. I've got a podcast and I do shows. Yeah, that's the one.
What kind of name is that then, Paul?
Well, it's a name from Japan. It means deep search in Japanese, and a lot of my comedy is about my time that I spent in Japan. So,
are you Japanese? Are you?
No, my wife's Japanese, but I'm British, but I lived in Japan.